you so much for joining me in that. So I want to start with a short little story about that I understand is true. A pastor was speaking to his friend, and he had just, he was also, the friend was a pastor as well. So he was talking about a trip that he recently took flying, and the airplane went into this turbulent thing and started bouncing around and kind of swaying back and forth, and everyone on the plane started freaking out, including the stewardesses and the pilot. And so as they're kind of flying and bumping through the air, one of the stewardesses remembered that on the passenger list there was an REV before one of the passengers' names. So the stewardess knew to go over to this pastor, and and she said to him, "Could you do something religious?" so he thought a moment, he paused a moment, and he said, and I took up a collection. It's an amazing time of year. Something happens to us at this time of year, whether we like it or not, and it's a fun time. And that's why I entitled today's talk, Holy Days. The other day, when we were walking the dogs in the morning, we go very early, about 5:30 or so, and it's still quite dark this time of year, and very chilly, and there's a place where there are no lights whatsoever, and it's a little spooky and scary, so we usually talk out loud, to make sure that everyone knows we're coming, and we're always a little concerned because we have lots of coyotes in our neighborhood. And as we were walking in this very dark place, we began to hear this high-pitched sound. And it sounded a little bit like coyotes, and we thought we walked a little faster, stepped up the step a little bit. And after a while, I thought, those aren't coyotes, it's something else, but it was getting louder and louder and louder. And I looked up, and in the sky, there were hundreds of geese, and they were in a V. Now remember, it's pitch black. The moon had backlit the geese, and there was this bright triangle of birds flying across the sky. They were so high up, it was amazing. And right there, I knew that was a holy moment. And then we said things like, holy mackerel! Holy cow! Holy moly! Holy geese. Yeah, holy geese. It was just phenomenal. And holy is one of the most ancient of Hebrew concepts. The idea of holy really means to come through our very existence. And it comes through into one's consciousness through experience, and eventually turns out and shows up as a state of perfect bliss. Now, when we had that moment of seeing those geese, that meant it was absolutely holy. It was a regular experience. It wasn't predicted. We didn't plan for it. It was just the moment. It was that moment of experience, of life's experience, where we just looked up and felt the amazing sense of perfect bliss. So it puts a whole new light on what is holy. And really, the idea of holidays came from the word holy. Yet, I think what we've got to kind of realize is that the concept of holidays seems to be, Christmas time, Easter time, Thanksgiving time, whatever, and yet it doesn't have to be. We can have holy days or holidays all the time, through everyday existence, on the path to our own existence of being holy and recognizing what is holy, being in this blissful state. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "To the poet, to the philosopher, to the saint, all things are friendly and sacred, all events profitable, all days holy, all course, he said all men divine, but I have to change it to all people. So from a metaphysical perspective then, when we think about holy days and holidays, every day is a holiday. Every day is a holy day. And every day provides us with an opportunity to somehow further along our own sacred evolution, our own unfoldment as beings of light and beings of love. Every day is that opportunity that through our humanity we can connect with our divinity. That through all the human events, all the human experiences we have, we can recognize those human experiences as a reflection of our divinity. Our experience leads us to the path of bliss. So there's a story of a little boy in New York City many years ago, and you may have heard the story before. It's been told many times, but it's absolutely right on point. This little boy is standing outside a department store, and his shoes are in tatters, and they're torn, and they've got holes in them, and they're thin. And he's kind of shivering, and he's standing outside the window of this department store looking in and saying to himself, "Oh, I wish God would bring me a new pair of shoes." And just at that moment, a woman overheard this little boy. And so she took the little boy inside the shoe store, the shoe department of the department store, and said to the clerk, "Would you please bring me a pan of some warm water and a cloth and a towel, and bring me about 6 pairs of shoes and socks." And she sat down with the little boy, and she wiped his feet and dried them, and found one of the pairs of socks and put them on his little feet, put some shoes on his feet. And she said, "I think you'll probably be a lot more comfortable now." And he looked up at her and he said, "Are you God's wife?" And it's this gentle reminder that any one of us in this room, if we had the opportunity, we would do that for an individual, for someone that appeared to be in need, that needed something, needed to be assisted in some way, that we could make somehow more comfortable than they appeared to be. But you know what happens is that those types of experiences are experiences that seem to happen as a special occasion. It doesn't seem to be that that's the run-of-the-mill kind of thing. And what I've been talking about today is that this whole idea of holy days or holy moments, because that indeed was a holy moment, that idea of holy moments really needs to be the opportunity to identify it as any moment, as any time. Not just that time when you might see the little boy who needs shoes and that's an opportunity to help him, but to know that every single moment is an opportunity for that kind of kindness and that kind of love and that kind of sharing. That perhaps we may be just anywhere with anyone in any situation and just be able to turn to that individual and give them a smile or a hug, or just say, how was your day? Can I just, support you somehow with a word, a thought, whatever that might be, or just call someone up on the phone that you haven't talked to in a long time. Because we don't always think about that. Our circumstances don't always allow for that to happen. And the reason they don't is because we're not always conscious. We don't always think about it. We're not always aware. We're not always in that place. I wanted to bring to light how significant it was to hear Reverend Liza's treatment this morning, because that brought us to a conscious state of awareness. It lifted whatever was going on in our minds to a place of greater awareness. And what I want to bring to light today is this idea that any time, any place, we can do that. We can bring ourselves to that place of highest awareness. Because most of the time what happens is we're focused on our fears, false evidence appearing real. And that false evidence appearing real, those fears, are often enough to let us slip out of our holiness. And instead, we start digging holes of despair. And that takes us out of that potential for experiencing the holy moment or that place of bliss. So being holy or walking the path of holiness, as some people might think, is not reserved for priests or for monks or for religious science ministers. It is absolutely the path of every individual. And actually, that airline stewardess on the plane could have asked anyone on that plane to take up the collection. But to come to that place of spiritual awareness, because it is in all of us. We just have different roles to play in that process. And so what keeps us from being there is that we're so focused on our fears of rejection, of loss, of pain, of loneliness, of embarrassment, and all of those things keep us from the realization of our holiness or the realization of our wholeness. See how closely related those words are? What's important is for us to recognize that we are whole first. And when we feel whole first, and when we feel that sense of wholeness, we are then on the path to holiness. Because until we feel whole within ourselves, it's difficult for us to reach out and offer the little boy some new pairs of shoes. Because when we're coming from a place of our own lack or a place of our own fear, the thought doesn't even occur to us to go in that place. But what's most important is that we can spend time in our own closet, so to speak. How many are ready to go out of the closet today? But we can spend time in our own closet, in our own space, allowing ourselves to come into our own wholeness, allowing ourselves to feel that sense of connectedness, knowing that when we step out into the world, when we move out into our life experience that day, that we're together, that we have all the things we need to experience that potential state of bliss or that holy moment, that sacredness that we know is out there. And what some might call this time of year is a wonderful reminder because we celebrate the birth of the Christ. But the birth of the Christ is not so much about an individual named Jesus that was born. He is the symbol, the idea, the Christ that is born in each of us, the holy light that is the potential in us that is born to be expressed in us. And when we celebrate that this time of year, I hope you join us at the candle lighting, because this is that wonderful symbol of birthing the Christ through light, knowing that that Christ light is within each of us. And so that symbolism of the birth of the Christ is the holiness that is in us, the light of the Christ born in us. And so when we do that, when we consciously recognize that, somehow it lifts us beyond our fears, beyond all of those lesser ideas of separation and negativity, and we move into a new place, a place of saying, wow, I'm coming from a place of wholeness, and I'm coming from a place of love, a place of innocence. Lao Tzu said this: love is of all the passions the strongest, for it attacks simultaneously the head, the heart, and the senses. I love that. It's because it brings all of those things together in us. And that's what lifts us. That is the birth of that Christ light in us, the recognition of our own wholeness, so that we can step into holiness in the world. So there are opportunities everywhere to lead us on that path of holiness. And all we need to do is become more aware, more connected. Spend that time in our own homes before we go out into the world, really feeling and experiencing and knowing and reminding ourselves of that sense of wholeness. Doing our treatment work, doing our meditation, really becoming so aware that we are guided by this divine light. And it's not a path that's reserved for Christians or Jews or Muslims or pagans or Native Americans or Shiites. It is everybody's path. It is the path of wholeness, the path of experience, the path of life. And it's not something to attain either. It's given. It's already here. It's already waiting for us to tap into that so that we can bring it forward, and it's something to evolve with. But it's so important to remember how we must feel that wholeness first. And so to help us remember that, I wanted to share with you a quote from Rumi that really brings us to that sense of awareness. He says, "Maybe you should know yourself for just one moment. Maybe you should glimpse your most beautiful face. Maybe you should sleep less deeply in your house of clay. Maybe you should move into the house of joy and shine in every crevice. Maybe you are the bearer of hidden treasure. Maybe you always have been." That vision that we repeat on Sunday morning, the vision that's on the wall, revealing the light of spirit through love, is something that we can use to remind us, to make us conscious, to awaken us, to allow us when we're in that place of, feeling separate from or going towards the fears, getting, trying to locate where the shovel is so we can start digging. And just knowing that we can use a statement like that to help lift us, to bring us out of that place into a new place of awareness so that we can be moving towards holy bliss, holiness. And so this is our chosen reminder. It's our conscious reminder that everything in the world, every aspect of who and what we are, has the potential to be recognized as holy. It already is. It's already there. And it is up to us to bring our awareness to that moment. And so I'm going to close today with a quote from Kabir, who was a contemporary of Rumi's, and follow that with a spiritual mind treatment. And then I'm just going to ask the choir to just kind of assemble up there after that treatment is over. But Kabir said, "Are you looking for the Holy One? I am in the next seat. My shoulder is against yours." And so just join me in that place of conscious awareness, feeling and experiencing the absolute amazing awe of this moment. This is a holy moment like every other. A moment where we feel and connect with that energy of light and love that courses through every aspect of our bodies and minds, and that we are lifted by this thought of holiness. We are lifted to a new place in our own experience and evolution. And we are led to see through the eyes of holiness in the world all that we can support with these thoughts, with our love, with our light, with our passion, with our joy. And so what I know for each and every person in this room is that we are constantly reminded of the holiness that lives within each of us. That we remember the spirit of light and love that is born in us as the Christ light, as the light that takes us into the greatest expression of who and what we are. That we are truly spiritual beings having an amazing human experience. we celebrate that with love, with light,